I'll start with my first question, but what was your reaction watching all of that play out on television yesterday? And I know you've got a really unique perspective because you're just so involved with the community. You work with the NAACP, with churches, you've served. I mean, just talk about what was going through your mind as you watched that yesterday.
Well, uh, the God's honest truth is that I had just finished sermonizing, eulogizing my father-in-law at Hooper Memorial. We had gone to the cemetery to Blue Ridge, and we were returning home. And I said, well, let me check, see how the election in Georgia is going, because there's so much for the Black community going forward that will depend on those two Senate seats, and Ms. Harris being the deciding vote. I got home, I sat down on the sofa, I turned the TV on, and what I saw was heart wrenching. What I saw brought tears to my eyes, because that's not America that I put on a United States Air Force uniform on for 8 years. See our Capitol building being mobbed. That was very unexpected for me, as much history that I have lived through. So to answer your question is, it was heart stopping for me. It brought tears to my eyes because those two buildings, the Capitol building as well as the White House, was built on the blood of Black slaves. And I thought about that and I said, who gives you the right, even as a United States citizen, to destroy, if you will, the property that belongs to the citizens? Okay. So that's where I was. I did not know that there were going to be 4 deaths. I did not know that the Capitol Police and the Rotunda Police could not in no way held back the capacity of the size of those crowds that were there. That's an unreasonable expectation for us to say that they should have done more. They probably did all that they could, and their responsibility was to protect those senators, statesmen, congressmen, and others that were in there, because they did not know the degree of weaponry that crowd, that mob had, that insurrection that was taking place. So I applaud them for lives saved. And I thank God for his wisdom and for his mercy not to allow them to bring a multiplicity of arms to the Capitol building on yesterday, because the well, it could have been a lot worse. And if you allow me to use plain, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I hope that I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. And I think, given what we went through last summer, and some of the peaceful protests that happened in and around central Pennsylvania,
Yes.
um, what were you thinking as you kind of thought to compare and contrast the two, from one movement, which was for social injustice, to the other movement, which, these people feel like they're fighting for election integrity? I don't need you to highlight the differences, but maybe talk about the differences in the response to those events, and maybe how that made you feel.
Well, to us, NAACP marching for the federal building and for the archives and other things like that, we were looking for a fairness in employment in the city of Harrisburg. We were looking for Black entrepreneurs and business people, and especially employees and others, to come in and be employed, by Marsico and others. That's why we were marching. But we had no intention of destruction at all. We obeyed the laws. The police were never called. We marched every Monday for a year, and we had no police interaction. We stood on all 4 corners and we did what we were supposed to do. The city council marched with us. The Dauphin County commissioners marched with us. So our intent and purpose was to negotiate peacefully and fairly with the companies that were assigned to the construction of the federal building. This is not what happened yesterday. Their intent was destruction. Their intent was disruption. They achieved that. They closed down the United States Capitol for several hours, which was in progress of counting the electoral votes to nominate president and vice president for the 20th of January. And that was mob violence. And I'll say this again. I am against violence in any form and destruction of public property in any form, and notably, against crimes against humanity and other human beings, because if you cannot create a life, then you don't have the authority to take a life. Let me repeat it for you. To anyone on this planet, in this world, if you cannot create a life, you have no authority to take a life.
I just, and we're seeing a lot of posts on social media, which, I don't know if you see them or you don't, of, young Black men and women, young brown men and women who are frustrated, who are part of those events in the summer that felt like, they didn't get the same type of leeway when they had interactions with, elected officials or police officers that maybe that group yesterday had. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Listen, Ryan, you know that in the totality of the day, the events yesterday, and I know that there would be many, many Blacks dead on the Capitol if we had done that, because there wouldn't have been a choice. It would have been Blacks, Browns attacking the Capitol building. You know that. The armed forces would have been brought in, Capitol Police, and their mentality looking at white people and their mentality and looking at Black people would be light and day. And there would have been many more casualties. And that's why I prayed to my God, when I heard what was going on, that we were not there. I'm not saying that Blacks were not involved. They were. I saw them on TV. But in a phenomenal percentage, we were not there. And that was not our cause. And I stated that in the beginning because we built both of those buildings.
Yeah. I think why do you think there is, such a different response to what happened in the summer of last year and then what happened yesterday? I do get the sense that the majority of people all fall into the same category, where when they see violence and destruction, there's a part of them that feels sick to their stomach. But it did feel different yesterday, and I don't know if I can quite put a finger on it. Maybe you've got some thoughts on it.
I believe that there's a difference between the Boston Tea Party and what happened during the summer. One was about constitutional rights, and the other one was about civil rights. You see, the Black community has been charged with being, with wanting to be lifted up by their own bootstraps, with no boots and no straps. We have mass unemployment in the Black community. We have mass layoffs. Even in Pennsylvania, as well as I know, 275 local businesses in central Pennsylvania have been closed, that are gone. That affects the Black and brown population more so than it affects the white population across the river. So then the depth of anger, the degree of anger is going to be different in the Black community as it is in the white community. Look at our East Mall compared to the mall across the river. Look at the deprivation that's in the community. Look at housing in the community. Look at jobs in the community. Look at the economic stratus in the community. And that Harrisburg, for the last 50 years, property values and other things like that, it has been reused to write grants and things like that, the money we don't get. So what I'm saying is that until there is equality and equity, in all communities across the United States, Black, green, white, brown, whatever it is, there's always going to be an over discharge of anger from the communities. And then you have that other element, that unemployed, never going to be employed, don't care about community, don't care about citizenship, don't care about voting, don't care about administration or any of those things. They're going to be on some of those front lines, breaking windows, setting cars on fire, and looting and other things like that, when the purpose, of the demonstration is nonviolent. I hope that I've helped you, that, and that's what our politicians, our governors, and others, and I believe that Governor Wolf understands it, but there's only so much that he can do as a governor, and so it's up to our community leaders, as well as our religious, our clergy, and others like that, to preach and demonstrate politicians, to tell the story and to tell the truth, so that people won't become vile like they were on yesterday. I hope that I've helped.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like, some of the responsibility certainly lies with politicians or maybe others, influencers of some sort, of why things would get out of control. And
Mhm.
I think you and I had discussions that were similar last summer with the social justice movement.
Yes,
We saw violent actors in some places. I mean, you
absolutely.
didn't deny that. I didn't deny what we
We
saw.
saw we saw looting, we saw
Right,
burning, we saw killing. We saw those. We witnessed those. We weren't blind. We talked about those things, and those things will still come. It's not over. This
right.
may not even be the beginning. There may be something else up the president's sleeve that we don't know about in the next 13, 14 days. We don't know. I'm praying to my God that it isn't. That we won't go through any type of civil unrest like in 1967 and 68 with Watts in New York and other things like that, because I'm telling you the truth, I'm not ready for that, because I would not know what to do, because this then is 3 generations, 2 full generations behind what happened in the 60s and the early 70s.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and you and we always have great conversations. So thanks for jumping on. You're a blessing to the community and certainly a blessing to me. I thank you for your time as always.
Well, thank you so very much for inviting
Sure.
me into the conversation, and we can have a conversation. Sometimes it's on the coattails of something catastrophic, but
Right.
it's okay, because America needs to have the conversation. We need to sit down as men. This is what it says in the scriptures. Let us sit down and reason together. And that creates a sense of calmness in the community, among all different types of groups and organizations, religious groups and political groups and others, because we can always do that without violence. We can sit down and we can break bread together, so that we come to some type of general census that will bring calm and peace to the citizenry of our cities and our counties and our states, as well as our country. And you still need to answer that question for me about the monuments. I'm waiting for that.
You got it. You got it. We'll
Okay.
chat soon. Thank you, Dr. Allen. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, stay
Good
blessed.
morning.
You
All
too.
right.
Thanks so much.